Hey, good morning, everyone. Thanks for joining the session. So today we'll go through the Azure Data Engineering fundamentals and what are the basics of Azure Data Engineering and what are the components of the data engineering, how and why the data engineering opportunities are being added more and more in the job market, even in India and across the world, and why data engineering or how data engineering helps the other data related projects. Okay, so let's get into that. So before I jump into data engineering, so usually I want to talk about the data. So what is the data usually? What exactly the data is all about? I know, like I did discuss in the previous session as well, the topic. So what is the data all about actually?
Storing company's information or organization's information or
Hmm. Storing any information. But what
yeah,
exactly the data is all about? Data and intent actually. What is the data actually? What exactly the data contains? So
it can be
like any
anything,
example,
purchase order,
and it can be
pur-
anything. Yeah, it
purchase
can be
order, invoices. Yeah,
exactly. Data can be anything, and it can have any amount of, any format of the data, right? And data plays any critical role in our lives, okay, from morning to evening, because in the form of various in the during various use cases, right? And as the data is increasing lot and lot because of the technology got improvised a lot and lot, because every time one new technology comes into picture, right, then some new things comes into picture, isn't it? So that is the reason data, having the data or maintaining the data is very important. That's what the companies also realized. Okay, so if you talk about any data, right, say suppose if you talk about any individual level, say suppose, okay, and at various sessions or various scenarios, we do generate the data, isn't it? We do generate the data or consume the data. Can anyone give example of such thing, like where we generate or produce the data from, like in the day-to-day lives? Yeah,
making calls to other
yeah, making calls to other, very good.
It
Transactions.
may be bank statements.
bank
Yeah,
transaction,
it can be a bank transaction, it can be a metro ticket, right? And it can be a Swiggy order, it can be a watching a OTT platform movie, right? It can be anything. So many scenarios are there. Or you got caught up while violating the traffic rule, or you're visiting an hospital for some checkup, or you are going for a provisional store for supermarket for some shop, for some groceries, then generating a invoice, and traveling by Ola or Uber cab, right? So these are all directly or indirectly you're generating the data, isn't it? And also working with the teams, you're joining with the teams, and currently also you joined with the Zoom, and here also you are kind of a producing, I'm producing the data, you are consuming the data. So directly or indirectly we consume a lot of data. And imagine about throughout the world, you are in being an individual, you are producing huge amount of the data throughout the day. And imagine about in a single day how much data will be accumulated when we consider all the people in the world, isn't it? So as the data is increasing lot and lot, so people also realize, the companies also realize, as we have huge amount of data, it is always good to get hold of this data for the better decisions. Why the data helps for the better decisions? Because say suppose you are there, and you are going for an appraisal in your company. So what do you do when you go for appraisal? So usually what you'll do, you'll take all the data points, okay, how much, how many projects you did, what is the your contribution, and how much money you got, blah blah blah, everything you would get there. right? So based on that, what happens then? You will take the your manager takes a decision on your hike. So the data points are there. Suppose there is a shop in your street, and the shopkeeper, the shop is nothing but a small kirana shop, I can say, in your street. And what he does, he just simply doesn't handle the business like that. Okay, he also plans. Say suppose based on the population in your area, based on the economical or economic capability of your financial capability of your area, the shopkeeper arranges the certain goods or certain brands in his shop. Okay, suppose it is very small area, and otherwise it is an area where all software employees stays. Then what he will do, he will kind of make all mid-level, higher level products or brands he keeps there, isn't it? So he won't do any cheap quality ones. Otherwise, the people may not be turned up. Okay. And also at the end of the day, he just checks what are the items that have been sold, which items are getting more demand, and which items are getting not getting sold. Based on that, he will assess and get the goods next time again. Then only is business will improvise, otherwise no, right? In the similar way, any organization as well, okay, takes the decision based on the data. They just don't take the decision. Say suppose you might have seen, like there is a area which is kind of, say suppose there is a area, say suppose kind of a Mokila or something, which is at outskirt. Okay, and that area was not having any population like 10 years back. Now the population is booming up. Okay, and if any company wants to add some, suppose there is a shop or there is a company want to establish a outlet over there, suppose there is a Pizza Hut, then what happens? Pizza Hut make sure that what are the population and how many existing restaurants are there. What happens if you are opening a new restaurant, what amount of the sales you can predict. Based on that only they will take the decision. Just they don't open that. Okay, suppose there is a area where all employees are like sorry, where all where there are no employees at all are kind of business people or daily wage people. Okay, if you are go and open a posh restaurant, what happens? They're going to get into losses, right? So various things comes into picture whenever you take in a business decision. Suppose there is a Yashoda hospital. So Yashoda hospital used to be very famous only in Sikidrabad, Malakpet and so much. Say suppose. Okay, now what happens then? They analyze the data, what kind of patients are coming, from which place they are coming. Okay, say suppose the most of the people nowadays they are coming from the high-tech city area because the population increasing there. So so if you open a branch over there or setting up an hospital is there, it will be good for the people around that area. And also of course hospital is also business at the end of the day, so there will be some business improvement. So what happened? They opened a branch in the high-tech city. Again, in the financial district, there is a probability of opening a sorry, there's a probability of massive growth in the next 5 years. Okay, you might have seen the how the Neopolis and all Kokapet getting increased. Okay, in the next 10 years, it's going to be another high-tech city, more than high-tech city. So what happened? They already started procure the land and they're opening a hospital over there also now. Now see, so just assess the data, assess the analyze the data, analyze the population or analyze the various circumstances. Based on the take a decision. Okay, similarly any organization if they want to improvise their business, they need to analyze the data. Now every company will be having the data. So suppose in the same Yashoda hospital they will be having the addresses, they will be having the what kind of treatment they are giving, what kind of patients they are coming, what is the age group, what are the food habits. All the things they get the data, then analyze it, and based on that they will take the decisions, right? So when the such kind of the data is available across various segments or various formats, it's a very difficult task for the companies to get the data and analyze it by the data analyst or data scientist. That's data scientist analyze the data and take a and or build the business models for the future so that the business can take a better decision. And when they want to get the data, proper data, right data, how they want to get, what is the way to get, okay, and how to extract the data, how to make the data readable by these end users. That's where the data engineering comes into picture. Okay, so that's where data engineering comes. Data engineering is all about making sure to give the right data to the business stakeholders. Okay, so whatever the explanation that I gave in the last 5-10 minutes, if I summarize that, if I summarize that into one technical things, okay, these are the data engineering use cases which I will talk about. Yes, Sattar, please tell me.
What is the difference between data science and data engineering?
Yeah, I'll come to that point. Good question. I'll come to that point. Okay. Yeah. Now I have a separate slide further to explain it. I'll come to that. Yeah. Now, what is the data engineering essentials, or why data engineering? So whatever the explanation that I gave so far, the same thing here also. One is a business insight. So data engineering helps for organization to collect, store, and the data, right? The data engineering helps to collect the data, to store the data, and to process the data, because every company will be having the huge amount of the data. It's always good to get into that particular data, right? Now, collect, store, and process the data, because it's very difficult task to get that amount of the data for the business intelligence. Okay, so the decision making will be done. Data driven decision making. When you have good data, accurate data, then only organization can make better decisions that can be backed up by the better outcome. Okay, without without data, there is no decision that can be taken. So that is the reason when data engineering provides accurate data, like I was talking about Azure hospital shop in your street, they can take the better decisions. Competitive advantage. So whenever they have the right data, and when they analyze the when they analyze the data properly, then only they can get the advantage in their respective market. Say suppose they shows hospital competitive with Apollo and all. Suppose there is a Pizza Hut, is there? Pizza Hut competitor is Domino's. And if the Pizza Hut is not analyzing the data properly and take a decision accurately, then they will lose the business to the Domino's, isn't it? So they need to make the better decision based on the data to compete with their counterparts. Customer insight. This also helps to understand their customer better by analyzing the data, so that when they understand the customer better, then they will give the better experience to the customer. Okay, if I take the example of, say suppose there is a Pizza Hut, and Pizza Hut evening, more and more people are coming between 5 to 8, and if you're not adding enough capacity in the kitchen, then what happens? Then the customer will get disappointed if they don't get the order in time. Then the next time they won't be visiting at all. Okay, so you need to understand the customer and give the better experience, then you will get the better business. Real-time data processing. So data engineering helps to process the data real time, so that they can respond to the changing conditions very quickly. Say suppose there is a you're using some geo network, okay, and suddenly the geo network got a issue and it got slowed down the performance. Okay, now if the company is not analyzing that real time in the sense, the immediately the at the point of itself, analyzing it and making a corrective action, so what happens? All the people will be impacted. So they need to make sure that they are analyzing the data at regular interval, how much data is downloading, how much data is uploading, how the data is fluctuating, right? So these are all the data they will continuously monitor that. That's where the real-time data processing comes into picture. Improved efficiency. So when they have the data, when they get the data, then they can make the better decision based on the data. Okay, data efficiency will be improvised, right? So that's where the data engineering comes into picture for the various use cases, so that companies can take the advantage of the data and help to improvise their business, right? So that's about the data engineering essential. Now, who is a data engineer? Then I spoke about why data engineering helping and how the data engineering is essential in the from a company perspective and all. Then who is a data engineer then? So as I was saying, companies needs the data. Without data, they cannot take the decision, and data engineering helps to maintain or to supply the data. Okay, that's where the data engineering comes into picture. So data engineering helps to design, build, maintain, and manages the infrastructure, which allows the organization to store, process, and analyze the data. Okay, so whenever you have huge amount of the data, you cannot maintain the data. So that's where the data engineer comes into picture. He builds a infrastructure so that it can store the data, process it, so that the data can be analyzed by the end users. Okay, that is the responsibility. So he works with the data scientist, analyst, and stakeholders. Who are the ones who are going to analyze the data? Data analysts like Power BI, Tableau reporter, data scientist, then the business managers or business, product managers. So these are all the ones who are going to analyze the data, right? So data engineer works with them, understand what they need, then he makes sure that the data is available to them for the decision making. Okay. So it develops, implements the pipelines to extract, transform, load the data from various sources to the data warehouse. That's what the data engineer does. So suppose there is a data which is spread across multiple places, multiple formats, and the data scientist or data analyst need to analyze the data. Data scientist analyze the data and take a better decision making models, and data analyst create the Power BI or Tableau dashboards to analyze the data. Right now, data engineer is making sure that to get all the required data which is in different format, different sources, and making in a common format and in the unique format, and in the standardizing the data, transforming the data, so that these people consumes this data. That's what the data engineer does. Now this end-to-end process, whatever the data engineering is doing, getting the data, transforming, applying the business rule, and doing all kind of transformations on top of this data, that is called a pipeline. Okay, that pipeline will be developed by the data engineer. So data, and finally stores the data into the data warehouse and data lake. So that's what the data engineer does. So data engineer is kind of a backbone of the data related project. Without data engineer, there is no data to analyze for the data scientist or data data analyst. That is the reason data engineer is called a kind of a backbone of any data related project. What happened? Yeah. So, and also once he create the pipeline, he also makes sure that the data processing gets automated and the data quality checks are performed, because there might be some bad data, there might be some inconsistent data. So you need to make sure the data quality is improvised, and also the data is secured. They suppose there is a credit card information which need to be encrypted. There is some valid information which needs to be encrypted. So these are all the things they need to make sure that that is added over there. Monitor the performance of the data system. Also, once the data pipelines are created, you make sure the data is added and the data is good. And if any data is processing well without any hiccups, without any issues, and if any is taking some lot of time because of some various performance reasons, then you need to make sure that performance is optimized. Okay, so that's where the data engineering comes into picture. So in summary, data engineer plays an important role, critical role for the decision making process to ensure that the data is available, accessible, and usable for the analysis and insight. That's what the data engineer does. Okay. Any doubts so far? Are you able to understand what is the data engineer? If I ask Sattar, hey Sattar, who is the data engineer, what it does? So you should be able to explain it.
No, I can explain it. Then what was the role of ETL developer? Earlier ETL was there, right?
There is no ETL developer in the modern data world. It's
Okay,
all
so that
about the data
that role
engineer.
has been transformed to data engineer.
Yes, exactly. There is no data engineer. There is no data. Sorry, my bad. Sorry. There is no ETL developer. There is no database developer. There will not be any DBA in the going forward. Everyone is going to be data engineer.
Okay, got it.
Yeah. Okay. Anyone else? Any doubts? Everyone able to follow me? Anyone who is fresher in this session? No. Okay. So that's about the data engineering. So as because of these various critical roles or critical activities the data engineering performance, that is the reason you see more and more business or more and more requirement around the data engineering. So that is the reason you see more than 50% of the job roles are being occupied by the data engineer. Okay, so more than 50% of the job roles are being occupied by the data engineer because of this reason. That is the reason you see more and more. So if you are going for a data science project, then they need a data engineer. If they go for a reporting project, then there is a data engineer they need to do. And suppose they want to migrate the data from on-premise to cloud system, they need a data engineer. And also all the legacy big data projects also slowly getting migrated to modern data engineering, then they also need data engineering. And also like informatica or SSIS or regular ETL projects, some of those projects also getting migrated to Azure Data Engineering, then also they need a data engineering. So altogether, because of all these reasons, you see more and more opportunities in the data engineering across the globe. And even when the downtime was there last year and this year, still there are good number of opportunities are being added to the data engineering profile. All right. Okay.
Then what is like, I have another question.
Yeah,
We have a
please.
big data Hadoop, right? So
Mm-hmm.
then
Mm-hmm.
what is
Yeah.
the difference then
So
data
big data, yeah.
engineering?
So big data Hadoop is all about handling the big data, and data engineering is all about handling the same big data in the cloud system. So that is the reason all big data projects also being migrated to the data engineering project. So myself, I have done so many projects where the existing legacy big data projects are getting shifted to the data engineering.
You mean to say big data is on premise?
Yeah, some of them are on-premise. So big data can be anything. You cannot say you can say that on-premise big data. So because there is no word called like big data projects, I can say nowadays. Okay, because in the data engineering also you do the big data projects only. Okay, so whatever the system they are using legacy on-premise big data projects. Okay, those are also slowly being migrated to the data engineering because of the various capabilities of the technologies that are added. Are you aligned or no?
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah.
Hey, now let us talk about 1 minute. Yeah. So where I am now? Yeah. Now, who can start? Who want to be data engineer? Who can be data engineer? Who can get into data engineering? If you're a database developer, already you have some basics of database, you can get into data engineering. And if you're a BI ETL developer, like the one of you are asking, they can get into data engineering. If you're a DBA, you must get into data engineering because you always need to upgrade yourself, because currently like ETL, DBA, database, these are all roles are getting minimized a lot and lot, and everything is going around data engineering. So there's always you can get into data engineering. And big data developer, as one of you are asking, data analyst like Power BI reporter, Tableau reporter, already they have some insights of the data. The combination of the data engineering plus data analyst will be having more advantage for the job market. Application developer, like you a .NET Java developer, and sometimes there might be a need of writing some code. So then these people have the advantage. And a QA, if you are a QA, and QA are also getting minimized nowadays. And if you are able to catch up with the data engineering, it's always good advantage for you. Okay. So, and of course, if you are a fresher, even the companies are hiring freshers. If you have the data engineering capability skills, because of the less people and more demand in the job market, right? So these are all the section of the people can start data engineering. Then what are the things that you need to, my bad. Yeah. So what are the things that you need to learn to get into data engineering then? So what are the things that you need to learn to become a good data engineer? One second, where is that? Where I kept? Yeah. So if you talk about now get into data engineering, actually, what exactly data engineering? Sorry. What is data engineering? Yeah. So what's happening? 1 minute. 1 minute. It looks like there is a, yeah. So what is the data engineering then? So data engineering is all about processing the data in the Azure, sorry, in the cloud system. Now, if you talk about any data engineering project, so these are the various fixed phases. These are the phases would be there: ingest, store, prepare and train, model and serve. So these are the 4 phases of any data engineering project. Okay. So if you talk about Azure, GCP, Google Cloud, or AWS, irrespective of the any data engineering project, these are the 4 standard processes will be there. So the first one is ingest, because the data will be there across the different layers and different formats. It's always a challenge to connect to the data and get the data. That's where ingest to come into picture. So ingest is all about connecting to the external sources and getting the data. So in this particular example, in this particular diagram, we are using one technology called Azure Data Factory to get the ingestion. So then the next is store. So before you actually transfer the data, you need to store the data temporarily. Okay. So here I'm using one technology called Azure Data Lake Storage to store the data. Okay. Store to make sure that this is this store make sure that all the data whichever is extracted are stored here, and for the further processing. Then here I'm using one technology called Azure Data Lake Storage to do that. And further we have prepare and train, which is kind of a transforming the data to make sure that the end users are getting the required data. So here it can be transforming data, computing the data, adding some extra columns, or doing some data quality checks, or adding the security features for the data. So these are all comes into picture in the preparent. Here I'm using one technology called Azure Data Bricks for such capability. Right? Now, once you transform the data, you need to add the data into final destination for the further consumption. So here, that's where the model servant comes into picture. Here, one technology called Azure Synapse is being used to get the data. Sorry. Excuse me. Yeah. So these are the 4 phases and 4 different technologies comes into picture, and no technology is fixed over here. Based on the data, based on the data scenario, based on the volume of the data, based on the customer requirement, based on the budget, each technology changes. Okay. But the phases would be same. There is no change. All right. So this is all about the data engineering. Any doubts so far?
Yeah. The data is database is SQL, MySQL, or how it is? What
Where
is the
where
database
where
for
exactly you're
storing the
talking
data?
about?
For storing the
So
data, where are we
for
storing?
storing the data, we are using Azure Data Lake storage. It's a file format. In the files, it's a storage container, a storage account where we store the data in the form of files. So before actually you're trying to transform, first you load the data into file format, then you do the further processing.
We are not storing any database.
No, we are not storing any data.
Oh, okay.
Okay. Anyone else any doubt?
Sir, why usually in databases or ETL processes, we do store in RDBMS databases. So Azure, why we are storing it in files?
Good question. So here the data would be different formats, different sizes, different locations, right? So the first step would be in any data engineering project to get the data and make it in a common format and store it somewhere before you process, because sometimes you may not be actually load the data directly into database, and some data might be in structured data, sometimes the data might be semi-structured like JSON, right? So it's always good to get into the data into one format, okay, into the storage location. Then you do the further processing and store it anywhere. The further storage can be a database. The final destination is Synapse, right? Synapse is a database. So then you store the data into Synapse, you then store the data into Snowflake. Again, you can store the data into regular SQL database or Oracle database. So those are all comes into picture in the final destination. But intermediately, for processing, as the data is coming from the different formats and different system, you need to make sure the data is aligned or stored in a file format so that it is easy for to catch it up and transforming the data.
Okay, in this case, so in this intermediate stage, so we are not considering any kind of relations between the
No. There is no such. I got what you're saying. There is no such relation. There is no integrity. Just to get the data from all different sources. Sometimes there might be some sources from 100 to 200 sources also might be there. Then getting all the data and put it over here.
Okay, okay.
Yeah.
So RDBM is coming in place of Azure Synapse, right? Or at
Yeah,
that stage actually before reporting.
Azure Synapse. You can say yes. Azure Synapse is a data warehouse database. It's not regular database. It's a data warehouse database. Snowflake, Azure Synapse, Azure Synapse dedicated SQL pool. So these are all kind of a specially designed databases for the data warehouse.
Yeah, again in the source, right? In the source, it may come right before ingesting. We may get data from again different type of
Yeah,
databases.
databases. Yeah, still you're going to convert them into
Yeah, right.
files.
Yeah, it
Okay,
depends on the usage actually. Yeah.
right.
What about a security?
Security.
Data security.
So data security, whenever you store the data into intermediate data lake storage, so you need to make sure the data is accessed by only some section of the people. The data is not exposed to the outside world. That security will be taken, and also the related permissions will be added into the final data warehouse. That is the access level security. And the data level security, you encrypt the data for key data, and also you might mask the data. So these are all security features you will be implementing.
I
Do
mean to
and
say
do need do
when
Go ahead. Go ahead.
I mean to say when the data is in the file format.
Yeah. So with the data
So
is
how
file
about
format, that's fine, right? You are going to make sure that the data is controlled for the access. So no other one can access the data, directly expose data. Only certain section of users only can expose the data. So there won't be any issue with the data security.
Do we need to add external authentication or something, or
Yeah.
how
That
it
the
is?
intermediately there will be RBAC control, role-based access controls that will be defined. I'll talk about it when you start the data lake. Okay.
yeah, one last question
Yeah,
is like
please.
when So how robust is Azure when connecting to different servers like Unix and Linux systems? Because usually Azure is more inclined towards Microsoft technologies, right?
Yeah, Microsoft, yes. Linux, I'm not sure if it is there in the source system, but 100 plus sources Azure Data Factory can connect and ingest the data. So it in the database, file system, AWS, so many systems are there. So for all those systems, the data can be connected by the Azure system. So data,
including mainframe.
yeah, let me showcase that as well. So if we talk about the data factory, so this is a portal.azure through which we connect to the database actually. Sorry, we connect to the various sources or resources of the data, Azure data related sources or Azure sources. So Azure data factory is the one. Okay, don't get panic. So this is all we are going to have detailed session. I'm just trying to explain as one of you asked the question. So let me go there. So this is the data factory I'm showcasing here. What's happening? Saying too much time. Any network issue I have? No. Looks like there is a connectivity issue. It doesn't take much time. Not sure why it's taking so much time today. Yeah, so I'll showcase that. Meanwhile, let's get back to our slide. I'll showcase that anyway while after it's opening. Yeah, so these are the 4 different phases of a data engineering project. Okay, so if I summarize that, so BI plus big data, it's all about business intelligence, and big data is all makes the data engineering. Big data in the sense the data which is huge in the volume and the different formats and different places. So you analyze the data, you ingest the data, you process it, you store it, you access it, and sorry, you may need to make sure that you give the right access to the right people. So these are all different levels of activities that will be performed on the data engineering project. Okay, so if you summarize or if you check what are the skill set that you need to have to become a good data engineer, that is a SQL. SQL is a top priority because everything you are going to manage the data, and SQL is kind of a the must have skill for the curing the data. So that is the reason SQL is must. Data modeling techniques. So you have huge amount of data in the sources and you have the target, and you need to have good understanding how to structure the data. And of course, data engineering internally will be having the ETL and BI internally associated with that. So you should know some of the basics of the ETL, BI uh, terminology, which we'll talk about as part of the training as well. And where we have tools and platforms, so many libraries. So when you have various tools and platforms, so you should understand which needs to be used when. Okay, when the huge amount of the data is there, what tool need to be there. When less amount of the data is, what tool needs to be used, how to optimize the costing. So these are all comes into picture when you have the good knowledge on the technologies that we are going to discuss. And when you have a huge amount of the data in the source and target, so you should know, you should understand, and you should able to imagine and design the flow among between source and target. So you should have the ability to connect the dots from the source to destination. And of course, you should have any one of the cloud basics, because of data engineering is all about maintaining the data in the cloud. So in this example, sorry, in this training, as we are dealing with Azure, so you should know the Azure basics. So as part of the data engineering training, so we are having couple of sessions for the Azure cloud basics as well. And of course, Python. So Python is not mandatory, but wherever the projects are using data bricks, so you might need to write some code in the Python or PySpark. So learning the Python is also one of the good to have skills for the data engineering. So as part of our training, we are going to have one exclusive session for covering Python basics, and you have cloud basics and also ETL BI basics. So these are all the things we are going to cover as part of the training. Only SQL is kind of, you need to kind of brush it up. Sorry, my bad. Okay. So these are the essential data engineering skills. So these are not prerequisite for this course. So these are the prerequisites to become a good data engineer, which you will gain slowly after the training.
Is BI dependent on ETL?
ETL and BI is a combination, right? So ETL and BI is a kind of a combination. With the ETL only, you'll be doing the business intelligence on top of it, right? Yeah. So if we talk about data scientist, data engineer, so scientists, they create the hypothesis, test and analyze and translate using the clean data. So you should have the math statistics skills, MLAI statistics skill, advanced analytics. So these are all data scientist tasks. But if you see the last word using clean data, last sentence, that clean data provided by the data engineer. So data engineer design, build and arrange the data to be clean. So data scientist using the clean data creates hypotheses and models. The clean data will be provided by the data engineer. So that is the reason data engineering is backbone for the data science projects. Okay. So this is the difference between these two guys. And we do have one exam called DP203 exam, where they will be measured data storage, processing, security, and optimized solutions, with which you'll be getting Azure Certified Data Engineering certification. And coming to technologies which are part of the data engineering, Azure Data Engineering, and which we are going to cover as part of the training, there is a storage account, which is the storage account where exactly you are going to store the data. So it's a scalable, highly available, secured cloud storage for the storage and accessing the data in the form of files. And SQL, so you have the regular SQL, and when it is fully managed in the relational database, managed in the Azure, so which gives high performance and scalability. So that they have Azure SQL. And Azure Data Factory is a cloud-based data integration service where you can create, schedule the pipelines. Excuse me. Synapse Analytics, so the big data analytics suite, SUITE, which brings the various capabilities under one roof. So serverless SQL pool, dedicated SQL pool, Synapse Spark, and HTAP. So these are all part of the Synapse Analytics, where end-to-end data engineering project you can do under the one roof only. That is the Azure Synapse Analytics, where Microsoft is promoting a lot, and going forward, you might see more and more projects in the Synapse Analytics. And Databricks is based on the open source Spark based platform to build your data related processing and data solutions. Okay, so these are the 5 key technologies you need to learn to become a data engineer, to get into a data engineering. Okay, so these are 5 technologies. Yeah. So this is the course highlight I just added over here. So it's a comprehensive data engineering stack program, whatever is required. And also Azure Synapse, as I mentioned, is going to get famous, already started getting famous, and you are going to have the Azure Synapse also for hands-on with the like good instructions, and also whatever the topic you take from any session, will be covering with the theory, in-depth theory, then followed by the simple example to the complex example to the real-time scenario. Okay, so less theory, more hands-on session during our trainings. And also you can get some insights of the DP203 exam, and also interview related discussions will happen during the training. And wherever it is required, we are going to do the regular assignment. And after the entire training, I will provide a real-time project scenario as a assignment, which you can start, and I will try to help to complete the same. And also you'll be having the sample resumes and also Zoom video recording so that you can stay track. And yeah, myself, I have around 17 years of experience. And yeah, I'm a Microsoft certified trainer and handle multiple batches. So these are about the course highlight. And why do you want to learn? So usually I mentor the people and I always mention to upskill always. So why do you need to upskill? So you don't need to wait to be in demand. If you're upskill, and upskill in the sense learning the new things, stay ahead of the competition and unlock new job opportunities. Whenever you want to unlock job opportunities, you need to get hold of any skill or technology which is in the boom and which is going to be boom, and get hand of it, hold of it, and you can advance in your career. And also whenever you learn new technology, more and more problem solving skills you will acquire, and which will be drive progress. And you need to be keep learning to secure your future, right? So the one slide added upskill. Yeah, so this is all about the today's demo. And before that, let me get into this where I wanted to talk about how many, sorry. So don't try to understand this one, just I'm going to showcase one quick thing over here. Yeah. So if you see here, so these are the various sources that data factory supports. So if you see here, Amazon Marketplace, RDS Oracle, RDS SQL Server, Amazon S3, compatible Redshift, blob storage, data lake, Gen 1, Gen 2, file storage, Synapse Analytics, Concur, Cassandra, table storage, and some are in the preview mode. Dynamics, FTP file system, HDFS, HBase, HTTP, Zira, Informix, MariaDB, MongoDB, and Atlas, MySQL, Oracle Cloud, Oracle Response, these are all Oracle Technology, Postgres, REST API, QuickBook, SAP, SAP Table, Salesforce, SQL Server, of course, Snowflake, Spark, Sybase, Vertica, Webtable, Xero, and Zoho. So some of the technologies, honestly, I don't know. I don't even heard. But these are all the various technologies or various tools through which a data factory can connect and extract the data. Right? That is the reason data factory is one of the most powerful data integration tool in the data engineering domain. All right. Hey, any doubts so far for anything?
Sir, 2 months it will complete all the topics, sir.
Yeah, 2 months it will be complete, 1 or 2 weeks here and there, but I'll try to complete in the 2 weeks.
What will be the timings?
So it's 8 a.m. to 9 a.m. So if there is a previous batch also there 7 to 8, so 5-10 minutes here and there, but 8-10 is the time which we are going to start every day.
And one more thing, like Azure Data Engineering, like when exactly it has introduced? What was your previous roles? Which technology you were working earlier?
Yeah, I'll talk about it. I'm going to stop the recording, then I'll talk about it. Okay.
Sure.
Yeah. Anyone else? Any doubts which can be recorded? If you want to offline ask any offline doubts, let me stop recording, then you can ask further doubts. Thanks for joining. Again, we'll catch up in the next session with the first topic. Thank you.